So we're at our third video at this site. The other times you wouldn't have a clue of what was going to occur here. Now you can actually see it take shape, and with that shape I'm going to explain the purpose behind everything. And so tune in if you want to make sense of those prior videos and get an idea of how a major hospital in Fresno has chosen to re-landscape the perimeter of their entire property. So we're just about into spring, where all kinds of things happen in gardening and landscaping. We're out there every day experiencing it, and we're going to show you our everyday experiences, which I think are full of education for the everyday gardener or the occasional gardener. So if you're interested in what we see every day out in the garden and the landscape, subscribe to our channel. Also check out our website at johnandbobs.com. So I'm John Valentino. I'm a landscape contractor and a landscape architect, and I'm here with Chip, the new treasurer of our companies. One of our viewers warned me to watch the expense account on the dog treats now that Chip is the treasurer, and I have to admit there was a slight uptick there, but I think he's under control so far. And we're here at a site that's representative of a lot of the work that we've done over the last 40 years or so in improving commercial areas and residential gardens. And so if this type of thing interests you, where I kind of let you in on the inside of all of our work, tune into this one. I think it's a good one. A major strategy of the hospital in trying to make this space useful is making it a garden that you can walk through. So, and a garden that you walk through with trees shading it in many of the spots. What used to be here was this fairly narrow decomposed granite path that ended up nobody using it because it was a little hard to negotiate. And so in the re-landscape of this, with this new theme of water efficiency, is a 5-foot wide concrete path, which is very safe and very easy to walk on, and I think very welcoming, and it winds through the whole garden. So what the hospital is attempting to do is to get people to walk the site for exercise, for health, and for enjoyment, and have it be a walk that is shaded for the most part by trees. And you'll see that that concept is carried out pretty successfully. We've got trees on both sides of the walk. We've got root barriers to try to protect the walk from future root intrusion and buckling of the sidewalk or raising of the sidewalk. So when you elect to do simple concrete paving like this, it's usually, just to give you an idea of cost, which might help you in your own landscaping, you've got quite a few choices. In this case, plain concrete paving is probably, in our area, is going to run about $5 to $7 a square foot. If you were to do asphalt, it's less expensive, but not as attractive, I don't think, and also not as sturdy, not as long lasting, and not as resilient to the elements. And asphalt's going to run you about $3 to $5 a square foot. Then you can go up in cost from that. You could do a stamped concrete that is usually colored. If you go to Las Vegas, you see stamped concrete all over the place with sealer on it, making it very shiny and eye-catching. And so stamped concrete is going to run you more like $8 to $10 a square foot in our area, and probably even in Las Vegas area. And then you can go up from there. If you use a paver, pavers get a lot more expensive because you got to handle each paver individually. And so then you're up to $18 to $20 a square foot. And then if you go to brick on top of concrete, where you use mortar in between, then you're usually between $20 and $25 a square foot. So that's a range of options for doing paving. So the theme of this new garden in terms of planting is water efficient plants. And we're standing in front of a nice example. All of them are really very water efficient. What we're standing in front of here is some dormant vitex trees, and then those were existing, and then under the dormant vitex trees are new plantings of a dwarf yucca called Yucca filamentosa color guard. It's really doesn't look much like yucca, really adds a lot of color to the landscape, doesn't need hardly any water, so you can water it very sparingly. And in front of that is another very water efficient plant that with the two together gives a nice color combination of contrasting colors, and that's a type of Tubagia or society garlic. This is variegated Tubagia, and so it has a silvery green leaf. And then on the other side of the walk from where I'm standing is a dwarf rosemary, which is starting to bloom right now. This one is called Lockwood DeForest. So it's a dwarf, low growing, grows as a ground cover, blooms a lot, does attract bees, and is very water efficient. That's a good representation of a lot of the plants that are on this site. We've got quite a wide variety of plants, but those three do a nice job of showing you the theme of it. So all things that don't require a lot of water. And then combined with those low water using plants was, if you refer back to our other video at this site, we referenced that the soil test revealed that we did have kind of a high salt content, and the soil testing agency had recommended a pretty high rate of gypsum, and I think we covered in that video that gypsum is probably overused in terms of being a panacea for everything having to do with hard soil that doesn't drain very well. But one place where it's legitimately effective is if you've got soil that doesn't drain real well and it has a high salt, high sodium content. And that is the case here, which we confirmed with the soil test. And so a high rate of gypsum was specified. And so we were spreading the gypsum before putting the mulch layer on. And then the other part of the soil test revealed low amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and low amounts of organic material in the soil. So we're using our blend very heavily. We used it all throughout the construction process. So while we're, even before we're planting, every time we're moving soil around, we're adding it. And then as we do the planting, we're putting it in every backfill of every plant. And then before we put the mulch on, we're doing another heavy application of our blend everywhere. The blend through the nourish-biosol has good amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And in addition to that, the whole idea of the blend is we're infusing the whole site with life, with attractants for life, with food for soil life, and life in the soil will solve all of those problems if we can get it to flourish. So that's what we're doing here. And then the mulch on top of it makes a powerful combination of soil amendments that's going to change this soil actually relatively quickly. I think if we did another soil test in another couple of months, we'd get very different results from the first one. So the shredded cedar mulch over the top of all our soil amendments is really good for the soil, protects the soil from the sun, and those products seem to be even more powerful when we put a mulch over the top. There's lots of mulch options available. Shredded cedar is a nice one because it's relatively inexpensive. On our last video that we just posted last week regarding the final step to our garden renovation on that residential garden, you'll see a mulch that's made out of Douglas fir, and that's the bark and the wood of the Douglas fir. And that's even a little finer texture and a little more expensive. The shredded cedar tends to be a little rougher looking, but it's also kind of hairy, and so what I find is it knits together very well and stays put, and that's one of the real benefits of it, is it's hard to get rid of, which we want it to stay there and protect the soil and last a long time, so we don't have to keep replacing it. So a major expense on this site is a brand new irrigation system that goes hand in hand with these water efficient plants. And in this case, it's a drip system. And for the trees, what we ended up putting in are individual low flow bubblers in 3-inch tubes that go down about 3 feet to try to get water down deep and at the surface. And we put those around the outside of the canopy on the existing trees and then closer to the trunks on the new trees. So, and those are separate, so we can water the trees separately with these low flow bubblers inside a 3-inch tube that has a sock around it so that we don't get dirt and stuff inside the tube. The tube has slits in it so water can diffuse out into the soil. So it's a good way of deep watering new trees and existing trees. Then all of the 1 and 5 gallon shrubs and ground cover are watered with, you can see this fairly intricate system of tubing that has emitters inside of the tubing, and that the emitters are spaced every 12 inches and they put out about 0.9 gallons per hour out of each emitter. So we're very slowly and evenly watering this area that has the ground cover and the shrubs. As those shrubs root out, they'll have water all around them. You can contrast that to a sprinkler that's spraying out 12 feet, uses a gallon a minute. When we're at 0.9 gallons per hour, we're applying water at a lot slower rate, which will allow it to sink in. Since we can just put it where the plants are, we're not going to be watering concrete or paving or rocks or decomposed granite. We're only going to be watering the area where we want the plants to grow. So Chip and I are standing on artificial turf, which was the hospital's choice to just have a small bit of green as a splash of green color right on the prominent corner here of the hospital property. I'm personally not a huge fan of artificial turf, especially in cities like Fresno. It tends to be hot. In this case, their decision was it takes up a very small part of the landscape. It generally, as you can see, it's extremely green and effective from that standpoint. And if you use a good quality one and all the proper preparation is done beforehand, it tends to be long lasting and a pretty permanent water efficient approach to and not having to use any water, which was a big part of their decision. Normally in our area, an installed good quality artificial turf will cost about $10 a square foot, so it's relatively expensive, but obviously not a lot in maintenance cost. And so we have here a big oval section of artificial turf, and we offer that as a part of this landscape design that has many other features that contributed to what they were trying to accomplish, which is water efficiency and use of the site. So if you find the information given in this video interesting, give us a thumbs up or give us a comment in the comment section. We'll appreciate any kind of feedback. You can also ask us questions. There's one common theme, whether we're improving a huge garden campus like this one, or we do a small little postage side custom residential job. And that common theme is its success is determined by the health of the soil. And that's why we got into this business of making sure, regardless of the size of the project, that we can make sure we provide healthy soil. So all of our products are designed to do that. The simplest, easiest, least expensive way of infusing the soil with life and making sure, whether it's big or small, that we've got healthy soil for plants to thrive and your lawn to thrive. Learn more about our products at www.johnandbobs.com. We started it off by showing you this project before we did anything on it. The goal of the hospital is to turn it into a water efficient landscape and move away from all the lawn which dominated the site. So all the lawn was removed and a new design was implemented.